Alright, so in this video we're going to be making a side navigation bar in Flutter, and we'll try to make it look like somewhat like Gmail here. And I'm also going to show you how to handle stuff like navigation, like when I click on social, it's supposed to take me to a page that has all my emails for social. When I go to, I don't know, spam, it should take me to spam emails and that type of stuff. So here we have an empty Flutter app. It's pretty empty, pretty bland. And we're going to try to replicate the whole side nav that we have in Gmail. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a home page. So let's just call it home, and we can create a, let's go and make a stateful widget because we're going to hold some state in there. I'm going to show you later what state, and let's just call it home. So we have the home widget and the home state class. We're going to write everything in this one file just because it's simpler, but of course if you're actually building an app that's going to be used, you should probably split this into a couple more files. And then we're going to add a standard scaffold. So let's just say scaffold, and then we can add an app bar. I'm not going to try to clone the whole Gmail application and all of the UI. I'm just going to try to rebuild kind of how their drawer looks like. So I'm just going to have a generic app bar so we can open the side nav. So we can just call it side nav app, and then we can add a drawer. So what you can do here in the scaffold is very easily add a drawer by saying just drawer, and then you can put any widget you want, but you most likely want to have a drawer widget here. Now, what I typically like to do in my apps is not have this drawer widget kind of embedded in a scaffold, because it will usually take up 100 or something like that lines. So I usually split it up into a different component, or a different widget, I'm sorry. So we can make a stateless widget that's going to be called side nav, and then that side nav is going to return the drawer that we have in Flutter. So this is a Flutter widget, the drawer widget, and then here is our custom side nav widget. And I'm just going to put it here for now. So yeah. Okay, now when we go back to the device that we just checked out, we can see a couple of these things. So we need to build a couple of things. We need to build this Gmail title, which will be just some red text, shouldn't be too difficult. Then a horizontal divider, then a side nav item, a horizontal divider, a couple of more items, a label, and then some more items. And also we need to have this effect when some item is selected, we need to have it highlighted like this. So that's going to take a little bit of work, but shouldn't be too hard. So the first thing I'm going to do is basically draw out the Gmail title. So first we need to go and add a child for this drawer. And since this drawer is going to be scrollable and it's going to have a list of items, the best thing to use here for this exact use case is a list view. And for most use cases, you're going to get away with a simple list view. And then in there, we're going to have some children. And the first child should be a text that says Gmail. Okay. And so since we actually have something and we can show something on the screen now, I'm going to save this and run the app on my phone just so we can see how it looks like. Okay, so here we have the app running on my phone. So as I said, we're not copying everything from Gmail, so this, just ignore this app bar. It's just used to trigger the side nav. So we can open it up right here. And yeah, this is just simple Flutter text. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to bring up the screenshot of Gmail, and here it is. So let me just shrink this. So now we can try to make this look like Gmail. So as we can see here, Gmail text has a different font, but we're not going to worry about that just now. But we're going to make the font size larger, and we're going to make the text red. And another thing we need to do is add a padding from left and from the top. So let's just add a padding since it's the easiest thing. So when we add the padding, we can just say 16, save, and that should refresh our app. Yeah, it has good padding now. Let me see. Yeah, I believe the padding is now better. It's pretty accurate. And now what we can do is try to make this text look more like this. So let's just say style, text style, and the first thing we need to do is bring up the font size. So let's say, I don't know, let's have it be 21. When I save this and go to the app, and when I check out this, they kind of look alike. The only thing that's different is the font, but other than that, I believe the font size is good. Another thing we need to do is add a color. So as you can see, the primary color I have here is red, and you most likely should avoid using hard-coded colors. So maybe you want, okay, okay, I want my text to be red, and then put it on red. But if you ever want to change the primary color of your app, then it's going to be harder to change. So maybe we can just grab the primary color since it's going to be red in this particular case. So we can say theme.of, grab the context from here, and say primary color. Okay, and now when I save and go here, yeah, that looks pretty accurate. Again, the shade of red is not exactly the same, but it's not too far off, I believe. Let's try, okay, we can't do that. Maybe we can try dark. Yeah, now this looks almost identical to me. Okay, now the next thing we need here is a horizontal divider, and Flutter has a built-in widget for it, so we can say divider. And let's see if that does the trick. Yeah, this looks okay. I don't know even if you can see this on your screen, but I can barely see the divider as is. So maybe we can make it a little darker. So let's add a gray color that's going to be of shade 400, and that should make it look a bit, I don't know, darker and stronger. Okay, now it's more visible than previously. Okay, so the next thing we need to add is this all inboxes clickable item. So I'm just going to use a list tile there since that's the most practical widget to do this with. So let's say list tile, and it has a text, or it's actually title, I believe. Yeah. And the title is going to be all inboxes. And we also need to have an icon as a prefix, as you can see here. So we can say leading, and then icons dot move to inbox, since I couldn't find this exact icon when I was looking through material icons, but it's close enough. So yeah, now we have that, but it doesn't seem to be clickable, and we can fix that by adding a on tap method. Okay, so now when I save, it's clickable, yeah. Okay, so that's great. Now the next thing we need to add is another divider, which we can just copy this one from above and paste it there. Yep, looks good enough to me. The next thing we need to add is this primary side nav item, and it's a little bit different than this one, since this one also has a 44 at the end, which is like, I believe, 44 new emails or whatever. So let's just copy the all inboxes list style, and then we can add some more stuff to it. So let's go list style, paste, and let's say primary. I believe that's what it's called. Yeah, primary. And then let's just call this icon inbox. And that to me looks pretty accurate. Just one thing we need to add is this 44 at the end. So that we can do that by the trailing property, which is just the suffix, the thing that's at the end. And we can just put in some text here, I believe. We can say, let's just hard code it to 44. We actually have to change it up a little bit. We have to make this text look like this. So we need to make the 44 look kind of like primary. And I believe I can just do that, adding a bit more font weight. So we're just adding a text style and bumping the font weight up to 500. So let's try that. Yeah, to me it looks good enough. Okay, so the next thing is social and promotions. These should be pretty simple since we can just copy this primary, paste it, and let's call it social. But if we don't have any social emails, then we won't have anything on trailing, so we can remove it. And for the last one in this category, it's promotions. So let's say promotions. And also for social, we can just say group, I believe. Let me see. Yeah, it's a group. And for promotions, it's going to be the local offer. So yeah, looks pretty accurate. It's not the exact icon, but I couldn't find the one with the outlines. Also, just a note, since all of the icons that we're using here are material and the built-in icons in Flutter are material, you can find all of the material icons in this URL, material.io/resources/icons, and you can use most of these icons in your Flutter apps with ease. So you can find maybe something like error, copy the name, go to your Flutter app, paste and save, and yeah, that icon will be there. So that's how I find icons for most of the apps. I really don't think that you need more than this. It has like, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of icons. So yeah, they should be sufficient for most of your apps. Okay, so the next thing that we should build, let me just pull up the picture. Yeah, is this all labels thing. So this is just some sort of a title for the next category of items. And this is something you'll have pretty frequently inside navs. So it shouldn't be too hard to build. So it should just be a text widget with all labels. And let's see how that looks. Yeah, it doesn't look too good. So we need to add some padding, just like here. So it needs to be the same padding as everything else. So that means 16. And we also should maybe make this gray, the text, and we should bump up the font weight to make it a bit fatter. And also we need to add spacing between letters, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So the first thing, padding. We can just use the helper from VS Code, wrap with padding, let's say 16, save, and yeah, the padding is good now. And now let's bump up the font weight to make it a little bit fatter, just like here. So we can say that by style, text style, font weight, and let's just have it at 600. I believe that that's enough. Yeah, seems good enough. Yeah, it's not too fat, but it's also not in the normal width. Also, we need to change its color to gray. So let's say colors.gray, and let's say shade 400. Actually, no, shade 700. Save, go in here. Oh, I made it green, gray. Okay, yeah, looks pretty good. And to make it look even closer to this, we just need to add some space between the letters. And you can easily do that by just adding one more property in the text style constructor, and that's letter spacing. I'm just going to add one. I think that that's enough. So yeah, now they're more spaced out, as you can see. So it's a bit more accurate. Okay, and now the rest of these items should be very simple to add. The start, snoozed, important, send, scheduled, because we pretty much have all of those types right here. We just need to change the text and the icons. So let me do that real quick. I'll copy the promotions one and have it say start. So that should be star outline or something like that, star. And we can say favorites, then copy it once again. Then we have snoozed, and the icon for that is going to be schedule. And it's real simple to copy these icons from Gmail, since Gmail is a Google app and Gmail uses material icons. So let's say scheduled, or no, what are they? Snoozed, okay. Snoozed. Then we have important, and important has something else. It has the thing at the end. And then it will have this icon, which let me just see what it is. It's called label important. So let's add that. It's going to have trailing text. Let's just put whatever is in the screenshot. It's 3, and the text is important. Okay, and let's just add the sent one, and I believe we don't have to go much further because they're pretty much all the same exact thing. Okay, paste that. And we can just call this sent, have it say sent here, and we don't have the trailing one here. Save. And now let's see how our app looks. Yeah, I believe it's pretty accurate. The icons are not exactly the same. I believe we can make this favorites one look as it should. Border. Yeah, so it's not as accurate as it could be, but it's pretty close. Oh yeah, one more thing we need to add for these icons is the color, because these are gray by default, but in Gmail they're all black. So let's add that. And we can do this pretty quickly using the mass edit feature of VS Code. So I'm just going to select all of this leading colon icon, and those are all matching, right? So I'm going to press Ctrl D on my keyboard, and it's going to select the next thing that matches what I have selected. So here I have selected leading colon icon, and when I press Ctrl D, it's going to select leading colon icon here as well. And we can do this for all of these items below. Ctrl D, Ctrl D, Ctrl D, Ctrl D, Ctrl D, Ctrl D. So now we have selected all of these icons by just seeing what's same in them and selecting it. And now, as you can see, I have my cursor on all of them. So what we can do with this is edit something that's kind of similar, but edit it quicker. So I can go now, press the End key to get to the end of my line, and then move 2 steps back with my left arrow key, say colon, color, colors.black. And yeah, this is a little nice feature of Visual Studio Code that has saved me a ton of time and just helped me in being more productive as a developer. So now let me save this. It's going to refresh the application, and yeah, all of them are black, just like here. Okay, so the next thing to do, I believe, is to figure out how to navigate the user to a certain page or to display something to the user based on what you selected in the side nav. So if I select maybe social, I want this to close and display something on the screen, maybe some some page or some text, some widget, whatever. Or if I click on primary, I want to display something else. So we can figure that out by kind of taking a look at the code we have now. The reason I made the home page stateful in the first place is because I want to know in the home page which thing is selected so I can display something. So let's just add some code and I'll explain as we go. So I'm going to add a property that's called int selected index, and it's going to be 0 by default. And now we're going to pass this selected index into our side nav, and our side nav is going to have a constructor this dot selected index, and the selected index is going to be always initialized from the constructor. Okay, so the next thing to figure out is how to display different content based on what we select. So if I select primary, I may want to display some widget that I have. Or if I select favorites, I maybe want to display a different thing. This is what you typically need in an application with a side nav. So the way we're going to do it is by keeping a property in our home state that's going to be called selected index. And that property called selected index is just going to be keeping track of what was the last thing that we clicked in our side nav. And based on that, it'll know what to display. So for example, if my selected index is 0, I can say here in body, I can add a builder widget. And in the builder widget, I can do a little if else statement. So we can say, if selected index is equal to 0, return some text that says selected index is 0, right? And we can also wrap this in a center. Otherwise, I'll just return a container because I need to return something. So when I save this and reload the app, it's going to say selected index is 0 because by default it's 0. And here in the builder, we say if this, it's 0. So if we go into our side nav, we can also do this for any other number of indexes or whatever. So we can just copy this and say if our index is equal to 1, then let's say selected index is 1 and that type of stuff. Or maybe let's say that this all inboxes thing is actually going to be indexed at 0 because it's the first element. It kind of makes sense that it's indexed at 0. So we can maybe show here all inboxes, right? Or maybe I can even go a step further and add a new file called all inboxes.dart, which is going to be a stateless widget, and it's going to be called all inboxes. And here you're going to display everything from all of your inboxes. You're going to have your logic for displaying and that type of stuff. So you can just say text all inboxes. And if I want, I can copy this, go into main.dart and just put this here, all inboxes. Import it, go over here, and it's still going to say all inboxes. And now you can take that widget that you have over here and just build it all throughout and have whatever you want in there. We can also say that for our primary inbox, we can just say here, this is the primary inbox. I can also move it to another file, but I'm just going to keep it here for the sake of simplicity. And for the selected index of 2, I can say, okay, social, this is the social inbox. Then copy, paste. For the index of 3, say, okay, this is the promotions inbox. This is the promotions inbox. For the index of 4, we can say, oh, this is the favorites inbox. And so on and so on. And now when I change the selected index from 1 to, let's say, 3 and reload the app, it's going to say this is the promotions inbox. So we have something to work with here. And of course, you can go further and further and whatever. But now there's an issue. How do I change this index when I click on any of these items? So the simplest and the best solution for very simple use cases like here is just to pass a function that will change the local home state to our side nav. So let me show you what I mean. In our side nav class, we're going to add a constructor, and that constructor is going to take in a property called onIndexChanged. And we're going to declare it as a function. And also it has to be a final function since this is a stateless widget. So final function onIndexChanged. And right now we do not know what that function is or what it's going to be. And in the side nav class, we really don't have to know. We can just say copy. And since we said all inboxes is going to be of the index of 0, we can just say onIndexChanged and then pass in an index of 0. And we can just call a function that was passed through the constructor and set as a property. So functions can technically be variables and properties and whatever. They can be passed through and around. And this is kind of useful when you have have use cases like this. So when we click on all inboxes, onIndexChange is going to be called, but we don't know what's going to happen in that function. It depends on the parent of this component. And in this case, the parent of this component is the home state widget. So now this widget has to pass through a function to this widget. As you can see, it's giving me a squiggly line saying on positional arguments expected but not found. So here now we can add a function. We can just do it in line like we do in our OnTap methods and whatever. So we can open up parentheses, say index, give it a type, and just have the function body right here. And here's the function. And now we can do this by just saying set state, because that's what's used to update the stateful widget. Selected index is equal to the index that's passed through. So if this is kind of confusing, don't worry, it's confusing for everybody when they first see it. So what we're doing here is just we're declaring a function right here in line and passing it into the constructor directly, into our side nav. And the side nav is taking this function in the constructor, putting it as a property, and then that function that was passed through is called when we tap on a list tile. So it's basically what list tile is doing. It's taking a function and then calling it somewhere down in the pipeline where you tap on some. So that's basically the whole philosophy. We're just passing around functions and using them as sort of callbacks. So now that we have done this, I can just revert this back to 0, and we can do this for all of our list tiles. So I can copy this onIndexChange. So since we have our application right here, all inboxes is going to be the index of 0. Primary is going to be the index of 1, social index of 2, and so forth. So I can just paste the onIndexChanged function and set it to 1 since it's the primary inbox. Then copy, paste, and have the index 2 be promotions. Then the favorites one is going to be index 3, and so forth. So now when I save and go back to the app, and I'm going to restart the app, so we're starting out at index 0. So when we start out, we should get the all inboxes component. And yeah, that's what we're getting. It says all inboxes. So now let me open the side nav, click on primary. And since primary is calling the onIndexChanged function and passing 1 through it, that 1 is going to be received in this function, or basically as this parameter. And then this parameter is going to be set to this property using setState. And when we use setState, it's going to redraw the page and use this selected index to draw out this text that says this is the primary inbox. So let's go back here. It's all inboxes. Open this, say primary, and it didn't do anything. It just changed the state. And when we close this, it's going to say this is the primary inbox. We can also go back to all inboxes, click, close this, and it's going to say all inboxes. Click on favorites, go back. Oh, it says this is the promotion box. So here I made a bug, I believe. So yeah, favorites is supposed to be index 4. So we can go back here saying social. This is the primary inbox. Okay, I forgot to add this index to social. Promotions needs to be 3 and favorites needs to be 4. Okay, now this is okay. We can go all inboxes, favorites. This is the favorites inbox, snoozed. Yeah, we didn't implement it for snoozed, but if we want to implement it, if we want to make it work, very easy. Just do this and say 5. So yeah, and also we have to add it here, say 5. This is the snoozed inbox. So very simple, very straightforward. That's pretty much it for that. But now another thing that we should consider is when a user clicks to go to some page, they don't want to stay in the side nav. In most cases, you want to close the side nav as soon as a user clicks on some item. So now we can use the mass refactor thing where we select, let's say on tap, Control D, 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 press enter, and then we can just close the side nav from here. Let's say navigator.of, take the context and say pop, and that's going to close our side nav. So now we can say click on primary and it's going to close it and navigate to the primary inbox. And now I'll go to favorites. It's going to close the whole navigation bar and go to the favorites inbox. Okay, now one more thing. When I open this back up, I want to know what thing is selected. Is it favorites? Is it promotions? Is it social? But currently with the code we have, it's impossible to do that because, for example, we can say selected is equal to true. Go in here, go back. But since this is hard-coded, this won't change as we select different things. And we can do this technically by doing if selected index is equal to 0, or if it's equal to the index of this. But we do not have access to the selected index property. But there's a very simple way we can gain access to it. We can do it in the exact same way we got access to this function. We can just say final integer selected index is equal to, or actually it's not equal to anything, and we can just get it in the constructor. And now we can do it. We just have to go back to the home state and then add another parameter here that's going to say selected index. And now whenever the selected index property is changed, it's going to redraw this whole widget, and along with that it's going to redraw the whole side nav. And based on that, it's going to say, okay, if the selected index is 0 when it's redrawing, it's going to say if selected index is 0, highlight me this thing. We can copy this and paste this and say, okay, if the selected index is 1, then make this one highlighted, and so on and so forth for all of the things we have. If it's 2, put here. If it's 3, put it here. And if it's 4, put it here. So basically the same thing. So we can now refresh the app, and yeah, we have the side nav app. Open the side nav, and by default it highlighted all inboxes because that's the selected index. The selected index by default is 0, but when I click on promotions and close it, now the selected index is 3, I believe. So we can open it, and yes, it's selected because if selected index is 3, set the selected of this one to true. Okay, so we have one last thing to cover. If you see right here, when an item is selected here, it's highlighted in red, everything is red here, and this does not look even close to similar. It just highlights this primary text, and that's pretty much it. We can add this logic pretty easily. So first we have to do a couple of things. We have to color the icon, and we have to color this text, and we also have to set the background for this list style. So let's first color the icons. Let's go to the first thing, and let's add a couple of new lines because this is going to get a bit lengthy. We can say if selected index is equal to 0, then make this the primary color, and if not, make this black. And this should handle it. So let's go back here and select all inboxes. And as you can see, now this is in red color. Now we also have to set the background color of this thing to red, but we can't do it directly in the list style. So we would have to wrap a list tile in a container and then have its color be, if the selected index is 0, have it be theme.of.primary color, let's say, I don't know, primary color light. And if it's not selected, then we can just set the color to transparent and nothing will be seen. So we can save, go back here, and yeah, this doesn't look as good as it does over here, but maybe we can make it a little bit lighter doing this colors.red. Let's say shade 200. Actually, shade 800. Okay, no, this looks terrible. We have to probably change its opacity or something. With opacity 0.3. Yeah, let's lower the opacity even further. Yeah, this looks kind of about right. Maybe 1.15. Yeah, this I believe looks good enough. So we can do this for all of the other things. We can just wrap them in a container. Paste this here. If the selected index is equal to 1, copy, make this a container, paste, copy, make this a container, paste, and so on and so forth. We can go like this forever. So it's the same thing, primary, yeah. And we also have to add the icon and the text effects. So let's do that. If the selected index is 3, make the color primary, and let's copy this. Let's copy it to this container like this. If selected index is 2, and if selected index is 1, do the same thing. So yeah, now this looks a lot better. And also in the primary one, we need to change its color as well. So we can do this, colors.black. So if the selected index is 1, then the color is going to be the primary color, and if not, it's going to be black. Oh yeah, I forgot to fix this. Okay, save. And yeah, now this looks very similar to what Gmail has. So yeah, as you can see, it's very easy to build side navs with Flutter, and they're pretty customizable. You can do a lot with them. You don't even have to use this drawer widget, I believe. You can go all out crazy with it, but if you're building your first, second, third app, just use this. It basically has everything you need. You can customize these things as much as you want. And when it comes to passing around state like this, you need to be careful, because if your app is a bit more complex and side nav changes based on some other effects other than just the selected index, you should probably use some sort of a state management thing. But for most apps, it's going to be just fine. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and yeah, I'll see you next time.